The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
It's Monday, and that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the show that focuses on our issues using our solutions with our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. Hit me up on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com. And while you're out on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and yes, that's right, subscribe, and tell a friend to tell another friend, tell another friend, and another friend, and a cousin, your uncle, your mama, your brother, your pet, walrus, I don't care. Just if they can hit the subscribe button, we need them to subscribe, okay? Also, don't forget to join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. You know, you don't need to say that word. We all know you don't need to say it. So why are you saying it? You know, because you're used to it. You grew up with it. You don't know the meaning of it. You don't know that you're being derogatory to yourself, your friends, your relatives, your neighbors, anyone that you call that word. Yeah, it's time to get rid of it. And you know what we like to say? Just don't say it. Okay? We got a great show lined up for you today. Okay? As you know, over the last few weeks, I've been going through the Red Summer massacres. Last week, we talked about Elaine. This week, we're going to talk about the Colfax massacre. So stick and stay for that with Black Facts. Also, the shutdown. Who's winning? Who's losing? And why the Democrats have got to hold serve. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It looks like they are winning. I got some interesting facts about Medicare and universal health care. It doesn't make you wonder why we don't have it. It does for me. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, we're going to focus on some facts. Well, we do that all the time here on this show. But during this shutdown, the Republicans have been, excuse me, did I say Republicans? I meant Rethuglicans. They've been running around lying. Yep, that's what they do. You know, you kind of get used to politicians lying, not really, giving you half-truths. But man, the Rethuglicans have sunk to a whole new level. We'll get into all of that today as well. Also, there's a white preacher out there. Surprise, surprise, surprise. There's a white preacher out there who says that black youth should be executed. Is there a bigger picture here that we're not seeing? I'm wondering, are you paying attention? See, I know what's going on. Y'all don't want to believe it, but yeah, that's what's going on. I hate to tell you. And let's see what else. Oh, I'm going to take a moment of the show today and feel sorry for Black Rethuglicans. People like Byron Donalds and Tim Scott. You know those guys? You can't wait to hear this. And last but not least is what we must do. Okay? And I will tell you, this one is defeat the narrative. We'll get into all of that and more coming up here in just a moment. But right now, you know what we have to do before we do anything. Because I think history is so important. I am a huge history buff, but even more so, black history is more important as people try to change the narrative. So let's do Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed this Black Fact because, as I've said to you, I am highlighting the Red Summer and all the massacres that took place, as many as that we can count. Certainly there were a lot of them that took place that we don't even know about. but it's important for us to make sure that we clear the air and tell the truth, because there are people who are trying to rewrite history. And if you are a black person, that means that your history doesn't exist. They've been very successful over the last few centuries to erase black history. But as I've said over and over again, their biggest mistake was the internet, because now you can go out and find what you need to find, and even more so, AI. So let's talk about this massacre. We've talked about many of those Red Summer massacres. We talked about Elaine last week. Today I want to talk about the 1873 Colfax massacre. It set back Reconstruction. Okay? It occurred over 150 years ago. One of the worst incidents of racial violence after the Civil War set the stage for segregation. The Reconstruction period that followed the American Civil War was one of the worst, most violent eras in American history. Let me say that again, because see, there are people who want to erase this. We're not going to let them. It was one of the most violent eras in American history. During that time, thousands of African Americans were killed by domestic terrorists like the Ku Klux Klan, who tried to reinforce antebellum policies of white supremacy. For many historians, one of the worst examples of this violence occurred 150 years ago, the Colfax Massacre of 1873. Immediately after the end of the Civil War, different factions began fighting over power. Bitter over the Confederacy's loss, many white Southern Democrats tried their best to continue disenfranchising and restricting the rights of former slaves. At the same time, insurgent white supremacist groups terrorized African Americans throughout the South. In Louisiana, the fight over the post-war government was particularly bloody. Simmering resentments between Southern Democrats, many of whom were former slave owners, and the Republican-dominated federal government exploded in the 1872 election of Louisiana's governor. The ballot resulted in hotly contested split between the Republican and Democratic candidates, and when President Ulysses S. Grant sent federal troops to support the Republican candidate, white Southerners rebelled and formed a heavily armed insurgent army called the White League. Similar to the KKK, the White League was a paramilitary group that intimidated and attacked black residents and white Republicans across the state. Out of fear that local Democrats might try to seize control of the Grant Parish regional government, which was almost evenly split between black and white citizens in an all-black militia, took control of the local courthouse in 1873 of April. Soon after, a mob of more than 150 white men, most former Confederate soldiers and members of the KKK and the White League, arrived and surrounded the courthouse. After firing a cannon on the militiamen inside the courthouse on April 13th, the two forces fired at each other until the black defenders were forced to surrender. But when they surrendered, the white mob murdered many of the black men, shooting at them and hanging some. Historians aren't sure how many people died in the end, but while records show that the massacre resulted in the deaths of 3 white men, it's estimated that anywhere between 60 to 150 African Americans were killed. The bloodiest single instance of racial carnage in the Reconstruction era. The Colfax Massacre taught many lessons, including the lengths of which some opponents of Reconstruction would go to regain their accustomed authority. Among blacks in Louisiana, the incident was long remembered as proof that in any large confrontation, they stood at a fatal disadvantage. While the massacre made headlines across the country and 97 members of the white mob were indicted, in the end, only 9 men were charged for violating enforcement acts of 1870 and 71, sometimes known as the KKK acts. intended to guarantee the rights of freed men under the 14th and 15th Amendments. Lawyers for the victims believed that they had a better chance of bringing the ringleaders to justice in a federal court citing conspiracy convictions instead of charging them with murder, which would have been tried in the heavily Democratic state courts. But the plan backfired. The defendants appealed, and when the case eventually came before the Supreme Court in 1876, the justices overturned the lower court's convictions, ruling the enforcement acts applied only to actions by the state, not by individuals. The ruling essentially neutered the federal government's ability to prosecute hate crimes committed against African Americans. You see, this has been an ongoing issue. You know, hate crimes committed by white people against black people. But I digress. Without the threat of being tried for treason in federal court, white supremacists now only had to look for legal loopholes and corrupt officials to continue targeting their victims. Meanwhile, principles of segregation were beginning to work their ways into the law, with Plessy versus Ferguson officially codifying separate but equal just 20 years later. The Colfax massacre was more or less ignored until the 1920s, when local officials raised a monument honoring the 3 white men who died in the attack on the courthouse, which called the battle a riot. In 1951, officials marked the site of the massacre with a plaque, once again calling it a riot that marked the end of carpetbag misrule in the South. The plaque stood for 70 years before activists pushed to remove it, succeeded in 2021. In 2023, organizers dedicated the new Colfax Memorial, which details the massacre's lasting significance and lists the victims' names. I want to go back for a minute here, because there's something interesting in here. That they erected the monuments for the 3 white men that died. Now, let me get this straight. Y'all mad because you lost an election. You're mad because you lost the Civil War. So now y'all are going to attack some black folks. The black folks defend themselves, and y'all kill most of them, hang most of them, shoot most of them. 3 white boys were killed in the attack that you all caused, and y'all erect a monument for the white folks. Ain't that something? This is America. Okay? Throughout the day, we gonna prove this is America. Because we got some stats for you, bro. We got some stats that's gonna blow you away. But this is what they do. This is what they've been doing. This whole thing about what is going on today traces right back to Colfax. It traces right back to the Civil War. You know, I love it when white people try to say, well, you know, Democrats, they were for segregation. Well, you know what? The one thing about Democrats is they had an epiphany. They decided that they were not going to be pigeonholed and have people thinking that they're a racist party. The Republicans decided, hey, that's okay. We'll do it. We want y'all to know we racist. And since the mid-60s, the Republican Party has proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that they're nothing but racist. And throughout this show today, we're going to talk more about it because it's about facts. It wasn't until 2023 that the correct monument was placed in Colfax, Louisiana. Think about that. So for all of these decades, since 1873, when people would travel to that area and see that monument that was placed, in 1970? Okay, 1951 when it was first placed. All the people that went to Colfax, Louisiana, they saw that monument and they were thinking, oh, this was a riot. And three poor white boys died in the riot defending Colfax. This is the lie that's been going on for decades throughout this country. When in fact it was the KKK and the White League who rained terror on Colfax, who murdered black people. And by the way, none of them stood trial. See, many people will tell you that when the Civil War ended, instead of letting those treasonous go, instead of letting those traitors go, they should have stood trial. They should have went to jail. They didn't. And in part is why we still have the problems we have today. Because all they did was start reinforcing segregation all over again. And then, of course, Lincoln was murdered, and it was a mess. Of course, slave owners got reparations as well. You had kept black people enslaved for damn near 400 years. They finally get their freedom. And then the federal government pays them reparations. But black people, even up till today, have still not seen their reparations. This is white supremacy at its best. I guess you could name the show White Supremacist Day. Because everything that we're talking about, as I look at my lineup, it deals with white supremacy. Later on, I'm going to talk a little bit about healthcare. And could it be the reason that they don't want health care? There's a black reason behind it. I'm just wondering, because you all do know that the affordable health care was not the first health care that was tried, but didn't come through. We're going to get into that here in a moment. But I wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about Colfax. And as we go forward, every show, the Black Fact, until we run out, is going to deal with the Red Summer. Now, although Colfax did not occur in the Red Summer, but many historians can argue that Colfax was in fact the blueprint for the Red Summer. It was certainly the blueprint for resegregation or segregating in the South. And then the culmination of that was the 1920s. And we saw all of the segregation and the Jim Crow and the black law, black codes up until the late 60s. That's crazy, man. But they want you to forget. And they want to erase all of that history. By the way, that particular history, that history note, came from the Smithsonian's website. The same Smithsonian museum that Donald Trump wants to get rid of black points and black people. Yeah, that museum, bro. The same museum. Isn't that crazy? The Bloody Summer, the Red Summer, whatever you want to call it, began in Colfax. And we would be remiss in our duties as black people if we did not make sure that our history is told the way it should be told. And when I say our history, that means American history. Because without black history, there would be no American history. The irony is that fool that sits in the White House today doesn't know that building was built by black hands, that the majority of that those buildings in DC were built by black hands, that the plans were created by a black mind. That's the irony behind all of this. These people are so racist that they're willing to do literally anything. I'm going to tell you about a pastor in Utah who thinks it's okay to kill black youths who run afoul of the law. You can say anything about white youths. We got some statistics to throw at you on that as well. Okay? So that's what we got going on. I hope you enjoyed the Black Fact. We've got more. Next week, we'll look at another Red Summer Massacre. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
Hope you enjoyed the Black Fact. Of course, we are hitting it hard. We're hitting it with facts. I also want to remind you all that there are forces at play who are trying to get me off the air in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, if you're not afraid of the facts, then you should be willing to listen. But see, the playbook of MAGA and the Republican Party is to keep you dumb and stupid. And unfortunately, Arkansas farmers and Arkansans are beginning to realize that while they're being cleaned out by Sarah Jethbreen Bodine Huckabee Sanders and the Republican Party and getting nothing in return. We told you. So here's what I need you to do. Support JoyNet Radio at all costs. Call if you've got a business and you need to advertise. Get down there and advertise on joynetradio.com, because we speak and will continue to speak truth to power. Now, coming up in this next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the shutdown, and it's really all about healthcare. But, I heard an interesting nugget that I had no idea, and it made all the sense in the world to me. Back in a moment, it's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Hi, I'm David W. Coleman, host of Black Focus Radio and the weekly sports magazine. We here at joynetradio.com would like to thank you for all the love and support you've given us. Our goal is to keep you inspired and informed daily with quality programming from gospel music, news, talk, and sports. Log on to joynetradio.com for the program lineup, and while there, be sure to make a donation. Then download our app and carry us anywhere in the world. Please continue to spread the word about joynetradio.com. And if you are an entrepreneur or have an upcoming event, or you'd like to start a show, let the professional writers and producers here at joynetradio.com help you get the word out. Call me at 615-554-0568 for more details. In the meantime, stay informed and inspired daily right here on joynetradio.com. David W. Coleman here for Coleman's Dynamic Rib Rub and Rib Nuts. Go to ribrub.com, that's RIBBRUBB.com right now, and stock up on the best dry marinades for baking, grilling, and smoking your favorite meats. 3 great flavors: hot and spicy, original, and scorching. Try them at your next cookout and you will shout, bake it, grill it, shake it, oh yeah! Only one place to get Coleman's Dynamic products. That's ribrub.com. Easy to order, and I'll ship direct to you or to friends and family anywhere in the United States. While on the site, be sure to check out other great items, especially the rib nuts. Who'd have thunk it? Peanuts sauteed in a barbecue marinade? That's just crazy good. Get them at ribrub.com right now, along with other great recipes. That's ribrub.com. If you don't like my rib rub or rib nuts, I'll give you money back. Do it today. That's Coleman's Dynamic Products at ribrub.com.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. This segment, I want to talk about the government shutdown. The government shutdown, if you've been under a rock or something, the federal government is no longer running. And the the Rethuglicans are running. Okay? They're running away from this shutdown because it is a debacle. But what else is new? When you go through this administration, you see that everyone that is part of the administration is a debacle. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. 2 weeks ago, I asked the question, and of course last spring, when the Democrats had an opportunity to shut down the government because of the big beautiful bill, they capitulated and voted. And Chuck Schumer took all kinds of heat, because here's what we understand about the Republican Party, the Rethuglican Party. And I like to stress thug in that, because you have to stand up against bullies. And the Rethuglican Party has been nothing but bullying the Democratic Party for the last 10 years or longer. They would lie and say, oh, well, yeah, we're going to do this. And then when it came to it, they never did. So the Democrats in March, along with Chuck Schumer, of course, you have to have a 60 votes in order to get something passed. You cannot, it's called the filibuster. And of course, for the first time, the Democrats decided this fall on this issue that they were going to build their fort. And this issue is health care. I've told you, and I've chronicled some of the issues that I personally have. I've told you that I am on the affordable health care, as is millions of other Americans. If, in fact, my premiums double, I will not be able to pay those premiums. I'm just going to be honest with you. That's the problem. See, here's what it really boils down to, is there are Rethuglicans in the Senate and the House who are so anti-Obama that they want to get rid of the affordable health care. That's what this boils down to. And they vowed, since it was enacted, that they would do everything in their power to try to get rid of the affordable health care. In comes Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump hates Barack Obama. And that's part of the reason. Oh, by the way, Donald, you didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. Barack did. He's trying to duplicate everything Barack Obama did. But in fact, he's failing miserably because he's an idiot. Now, he's certainly a great con man, but when it comes to intellectualism, he's a damn idiot. So this whole thing about healthcare, because they know that if this thing passes, as of this month, people are already receiving letters from their insurance companies how their premiums are going to increase. I got a letter from Johns Hopkins, whereas I went to the emergency room and used my health care, and they told me that they are going to have to stop using the health care that I have. And I have one of the biggest healthcare companies in America. So this is serious business. Every one of you. And you say, well, you know what? I work. My job takes care of my health care. But you know what's going to happen? Your health care is going to explode as well. You know why? Because see, all of those people that are paying into the healthcare organizations, if their premiums explode, many of them will not be able to pay those premiums. We're talking about something like 16 million Americans. They will not be able to pay those premiums. So guess where the premiums are going to be passed on to? Yeah, you people that have work health insurance. Your premiums are already skyrocketing right now. They're already out the solar system. So this is a big thing. And I said that if the Democrats couldn't stand on this, I said this 3 weeks ago, right here on the show. If the Democrats couldn't stand on this, they might as well disband their party. And I was serious. Because you can't tell me that it's okay to take health care from 16 million people so that you can pay for a tax cut for the top 1%. Where I've told you all, trickle down economics don't work. They always get caught in the piping. They get clogged up in the piping. So the Democrats have decided to stand on health care. So, doing some research, I stumbled upon a nugget. And I did not know that Theodore Roosevelt at one point wanted to have universal health care. You know, and the question came to me, why is it that we're sending so much money to other countries? Those countries have universal health care, like Israel, free college. But America doesn't have universal health care for its citizens. The richest nation in the world does not have universal health care. It makes no sense to me. Some smaller countries have universal health care. And all the millions and billions of dollars that we're spending Every American should have universal health care. Every one of us. Let me tell you, remember when people, I don't know if y'all don't remember it, but I'm old enough to remember when people drove and didn't have car insurance. Y'all remember that? Those of you who are my age, yeah, I'm an old fuddy-duddy. I remember people, as a matter of fact, I remember when I got my first car, I didn't have car insurance on my first car. I will tell you what it was. My very first car was an Opel Kadett wagon. We called it the little red wagon. And I had some JBLs in it. And boy, that little sucker used to bump. It only lasted me for about 8 months because it was crazy. But anyway, I remember when we didn't have car insurance. And guess what happened? Legislators across the country and legislatures across the country decided that we were going to partner with the insurance agencies and we were going to mandate that everyone who drives a car must have car insurance. They mandated it. So here comes Barack Obama. And by the way, the Affordable Health Care Act was a Republican plan. And by the way, the Rethuglican Party right now, although they're trying to cut your health care, they do not have a backup plan. They have a concept of a plan, as Donald Trump said during the debate last year. They don't have a plan. They're basically going to throw millions of Americans off of their health care so they could feel good that they are crapping on former President Barack Obama. They don't care about people. But back to this thing about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt tried to institute universal health care. This boggled my mind. Go out and do your research. In fact, I posted that post on my wall. Not only did Teddy Roosevelt, by the way, it failed, obviously. Not only did Teddy Roosevelt try to create universal health care for Americans, Franklin Delano Roosevelt tried to do it too. It failed. Y'all get this, right? It failed. Another president tried to do it. Harry Truman. It failed. Now, why do you think it failed? This is the dope for this particular commentary. Commentation. What am I talking about? Why do you think it failed? Because during that time, there were white supremacists who did not want black people to be able to have health care. And their argument was that if you don't give them health care, they would die off in 2 to 3 generations. And there would no longer be many black people in America. Hello. And then when they tried to institute Medicare, it was supposed to be part of the healthcare industry, or I should say healthcare for Americans. And it wasn't going to cost you anything. But they wanted to put a 20% hole. What that means basically is you, the person who's using Medicare, would have to pay 20% of the total cost. And they knew at the time that black people could not afford that 20%. I'm sitting here thinking about Dr. Charles Drew. I don't know why it popped into my head. You know, the guy who created blood transfusions. Y'all remember him? He was a black man, by the way, who ended up dying in a car accident. Well, actually, he was in the car accident and he needed a blood transfusion, the same procedure that he had created. and they took him to a white hospital, and the white hospital would not perform the procedure that Dr. Drew created. Thusly, Dr. Drew died. He basically bled to death. Is it insanguination? I think that's the word for it. Medical people, don't get mad at me. I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank right now. So it was going to be a 20% hole. And they were hoping that black people could not afford Medicare and they would all end up dying. So when I read that, and because I understand the history of America, and I've read so much about how America is so embedded with racism and hatred for black people, which I don't understand, it makes all the sense in the world. You see, white people really want America to be all white. If they could have it all white, they would. That's the whole thing about the Mormons up there in Utah. We're going to talk about a Utah pastor here later on in the show. That they got their text from some golden tablets that we ain't never seen before. Don't get me on the Mormons. But Utah in that area is lily white. Many white supremacists have wanted America to, part of that country to break off, part of the country up there to break off and form its own white nation. Not realizing that y'all don't grow crap in Utah. Maybe corn. But it's amazing to me as I did this research about this healthcare thing, because this is about healthcare. I stumbled upon the fact that the reason we don't have universal health care is because of racism. Now, when you bring it forward, see, this is the killer. See, when you understand and study history, you begin to tie things together. And when you bring these thoughts forward, here's what happens. A black man gave black people universal, of course we know it's not universal, but it gave them health care. And the Rethuglican Party right now, because of this shutdown, they don't want black people to have this health care. So what are they doing? They are lying to you, the American people. They are lying to you and saying that, hey, immigrants are getting free health care, which is a lie. Even the bill states, and if you go out and look at the bill that the Democrats are pushing on page 57, it explicitly says that you must be an American citizen in order to get health care. Here's what's so banal about this that I heard late last week, though, is that these people are so cruel, and we know they're cruel, based on what we've seen thus far. But they are so cruel that they don't even, let's say, for instance, there's a bad car wreck. And let's just say right in front of the hospital, right in front of the emergency room, there's a 3-car pile up. People are bloody, blood all over the place. They need emergency care. The ER staff runs out to try to provide assistance. The EMS comes to try to provide assistance. The fire department comes to try to provide assistance. And when they get there, they realize, oh, these people are Hispanic. They're possibly illegal immigrants. So we're not going to help them. Did you know back in what was it? Under the Reagan administration in the 1980s, it was Ronald Reagan. One of the few good things he did was mandate that if someone shows up in your ER and they require service, you must serve them. That is a federal law. But you know, these Rethuglicans today, They don't even want that. If a pregnant immigrant walks into the ER and she is having labor pains and requires some emergency surgery like a C-section, are you telling me that they are not going to help them? Wow. You see, I worked in an ER for about 5 years. And I worked in one of the upper scale restaurants, hospitals. I'll tell you what, it was Baptist Hospital in Memphis. Everybody that didn't have good insurance went to the Med. That was the city hospital. But you know what? Every now and then we had people come over to our ER because I was the ER supervisor, and they would require service because, number one, the Med was crowded. Number two, they didn't have anywhere else to go. I paused there for a moment because that was where I saw my first HIV victim. And she was horrible. Just on a side note, she had a picture with me. I had to do her intake. And she was brought in on an ambulance. And her face was covered with all kinds of corpuscles, and it was hard to look at this young lady. So they took her back to the room. And I had to go back to the room and get more information. And when I walked into the room, she said, "I'm not contagious." She said, "I want to show you something." And on her lap, she carried a picture of herself. It was a 8x10. And it was laying face down, and she flipped it over. She said, "This is me." She said, "I know I don't look like this, but I'm still in here." Oh, man. I had to take a moment. I said, "Sister, I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to try to do everything I can to try to help you or get you some help." I say that because had she been an immigrant, would she have been helped? Would we have closed the doors? Under this administration, this thugged out administration, this is what they want. They don't want to even be human. At what point are you walking down the street and there's someone laying in the street and you don't stop to help? At what point do you decide that, hey, look, I'm not interested? The most evil person would stop and help. The most mean person would stop and help. But this Rethuglican party does not seem to want to do that. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. We need to take a break. We're going to continue this conversation because this should be disturbing to all of you, that human beings don't respect other human beings. But then you remember your history and you remember who's doing it, and it should not be a surprise. Back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joinnedradio.com.
Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the dynamic rib dust for seasoning, and the dynamic rib rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with dynamic rib juice. Don't forget the dynamic pepper juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious dynamic rib nuts. Can't decide? Order a dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. Send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I was telling you the story of the young lady that I met while I was the intake supervisor in the emergency room at Baptist Hospital. It was a horrifying existence to see that picture. And by the way, the picture that she showed me, the woman she could have been a model. She was just that beautiful. And this was early on when AIDS was ravaging the country. And it made, as I thought about what the Rethuglican Party wants to do, it made me think about her. Because even at the base of my humanity, I felt sorry for this woman. I knew about AIDS. I had heard about AIDS. I knew people who had died of AIDS. I had never encountered an AIDS patient up close. Of course, I had my coverings on, my protective wear and stuff like that. And she made sure, she says, I'm not contagious. I had to take her temperature, of course. I had to wear gloves and all that other stuff. But my base humanity, I don't know what she did to get AIDS. You know what? I don't care. It could have been a blood transfusion. It could have been all kinds of ways she could have contracted it. But early on, they didn't know how to treat it. And there she was dying. And I had to use every ounce of my humanity to make her feel like it's going to be okay. I knew she wasn't going to be okay. I knew at some point she was going to die, and it was going to be a horrible death. I could see it. I could see her face and her hands. But even in what I saw, my humanity stood out. And when I left that room for the last time, I said, okay, sister, I got everything I need. She said, thank you. In a nice, calm, professional voice, by the way. She said, thank you. And I said, oh, no problem. This is my job. She said, no, thank you for treating me like a person. Because most people see me like this. And then she turned again and showed me the picture. They said they don't see this person. They just see the current person. And they're afraid of me. And even though you might have been afraid, you didn't make me feel like you were. So thank you. And as I walked out, I looked back at her and I said, sister, I hope the creators show you favor. That was my humanity. You understand what I'm saying? What person, what human being, this is why you have to be so upset with what's going on in Israel and the murder of those thousands and thousands of women and children. Look, I don't give a damn about Israel's policies. I just know that women and children are being murdered over something that is stupid. Where is the humanity in us? And then it hit me. The Rethuglicans can talk about this, because there has never been any humanity in them. Now, I'm not saying as a party. I'm talking about as a people. These were the same people. You know, I was listening to a guy talking about the Constitution and Thomas Jefferson, and how he was lauding all of this love on Thomas Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And, you know, he was making some very valid points. But as I sat and listened to him, I couldn't help but to think, how could a man be so intellectually beautiful in viewing people, on the other hand, did not view people of color as the same? How could you write, all men are created equal, yet you own slaves? What men are you talking about? How could you say all men are created equal, yet you raped little girls and little boys? How could you say all men are created equal when you bought people, human beings, on auction blocks and bred them like livestock? How could you say that, Thomas Jefferson? And as I listened to that interview of that writer, I can't help but to think, this is their history of thinking that they are beyond reproach when it comes to the world, and they can do anything and everything that they want because for some weird reason they've been led to believe that they have been blessed because their skin is white, not understanding that their white skin is not normal, it's an anomaly in nature. Thus, them being 1/4 of the world, people of color being 3/4 of the world. So when I hear them wanting to throw people off of their health insurance, when I hear them wanting to tell people that, or arrest people and send them to countries that they have never been to, when I hear ICE on the streets of places like Portland and Chicago and Los Angeles, when I hear them mask, this is classic KKK behavior. Think about it. You are doing a legal activity in rounding up, quote unquote, illegal people in America. Yet you wear a mask. What are you ashamed of? I don't know any police department that wears a mask. The only time they ever wore masks was during COVID. And if you said, would you please remove your mask so I can see what you look like? They would remove it and put it back on, but they would remove it. So what I'm saying to you is these tactics are laced in history. What is happening with ICE is nothing more than the slave patrols. That's all this is. And if you don't understand history, and if you've never read history this is why I'm doing the Red Summers. This is why I'm doing those. Because I want you to know this is their history. And they've had plenty of time to change. So instead of changing, what do? Every other generation, they double back down to their bigotry and their racism. Not understanding that they need black people and brown people in America to survive. Ask the farmers. How many crops rotted in the field this late August and September because they didn't have people to pick those crops? How many hotel rooms are not being cleaned because they don't have those low-wage Hispanics to clean the hotels? Hello? Cutting their nose off to spite their face because their history, it's in their DNA to be evil. Yes, We are in dangerous times. So when I see and hear about all of these lies, and they go back and they lie and they lie and they lie. Mike Johnson last week was caught, the Speaker of the House was caught multiple times on multiple different radio shows and television shows lying to people. He was even caught on C-SPAN when a lady called in and begged him that, I can't believe you're making six figures. And I'm paraphrasing this lady, a white lady who said she was a Republican. And you don't even want to make sure that our military is getting paid. But here's the irony behind this, is that these very same people who have shut down the government, they are going to get their paychecks. The House of Representatives are going to get their paychecks. The senators are going to get their paychecks. Hello? The defense minister, the attorney general are going to get their paychecks. Donald Trump is going to get his paycheck. But these poor people that are out here in the streets on a regular basis, just struggling to make ends meet, who don't have two pennies to rub together to make a spark, you're going to take their money and give it to the top 1%. Every person in America, whether you're black or white, this is no longer about politicians. This is no longer about political parties. This is about a class of men. 90% of them are men who are in Congress, who have decided that they're going to take your money, your tax dollars, and they're gonna laugh at you while you are struggling, while you gotta call the damn landlord and say, hey, look, you know, when this government shut down, I'm gonna get you your money as soon as you can. But you know what? You might be able to call the landlord, but when your child is hungry and needs something to eat, who you gonna call? This is your Rethuglican party. And this is their history. We'll take the top of the hour break. We're back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. Hi, I'm David W. Coleman, host of Black Focus Radio and the weekly sports magazine. We here at joynetradio.com would like to thank you for all the love and support you've given us. Our goal is to keep you inspired and informed daily with quality programming from gospel music, news, talk, and sports. Log on to joynetradio.com for the program lineup, and while there, be sure to make a donation. Then download our app and carry us anywhere in the world. Please continue to spread the word about joynetradio.com. And if you are an entrepreneur or have an upcoming event, or you'd like to start a show, let the professional writers and producers here at joynetradio.com help you get the word out. Call me at 615-554-0568 for more details. In the meantime, stay informed and inspired daily right here on joynetradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices, right here on JoyNetRadio.com. It's the second hour, and of course, we do it just as good in the second hour as we do in the first hour. Coming up this hour, we're going to talk a little bit about white folks calling for executing young black males. Yeah, they're openly telling you what they want to do now, all right? We're also going to talk about the Black Rethuglicans. What's wrong with them? They are just a sad lot. And what we must do, we must control the narrative. We'll talk about that later on in the show. I want to remind people to support our sponsors, JoyNetRadio.com and RibRub.com, RIBBRUBB.com. And remember that supporting JoyNet is not just supporting me, it's supporting black media. And if they had their druthers, there would be no black media. They would own everything. I need to go out and look. Recently, I saw where a sister has bought The Root. You know, at one point, we thought The Root was black-owned, and it wasn't. It was purchased by white people, and then this sister just bought it. So hats off to her for that. Go out and check that out. I'm sorry I don't have a name in front of me, but that just popped in my head. I read that story. Also, join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. What I do on this show is about your self-esteem. Well, it's about mine too, but I don't need it as bad as some of you all. Because if you all know me, y'all know I'm down for the team. My self-esteem hadn't lacked at all. But it's for your self-esteem. Because you know, the N-word is a derogatory word that was created by white people to defame you and your ancestors. And this word has traveled through centuries to the point where some black people have decided that they wanted to try to take the pain out of the word. A word, let me tell you something. If I say something is red, the color is red, and you say, oh, we're going to take the red out of red. See how stupid that sounds? Exactly. The only way you're going to get rid of red is to paint it over with something new. Something with black paint. So here we are. It's time to get rid of that word. Just don't say it. Okay? Now, this hour I want to start off with, when I saw this, I was like, look, as I told you and what I talked about last hour, I am not surprised of their mentality. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing back in 1987 told you on Donahue that the browning of America was taking place, and by 2042 it was going to happen. Now they're pushing it off to 2045 to 50. Anywhere within that decade, America will be predominantly minority. There are already states that are here that today are predominantly minority. Texas is one of them, by the way. Los Angeles, or I should say California, is another one. They can't stop it. All of this stuff about migration and immigration has to do with the browning of America. So, I talked a little bit about the health care that Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Harry S. Truman wanted to institute. If you missed that part, you need to go back and listen to it because it's part of what's going on today. They were hoping, those who opposed those three presidents and others, they didn't want it to happen because their hope was that black people would die off by getting sick, by getting disease. I don't doubt that they probably wished that they could have, given every black family smallpox blankets, just like they did the Native American Indians. I don't doubt that. We know what happened with this the Tuskegee experiment, where they infected black men with syphilis and lied to them for 20 years and watched how the syphilis ate their bodies up. And not only that, they didn't tell these black men they had syphilis. These black men were married, had intercourse with their wives, and infected their wives. And unfortunately, many of the children that they sired were deformed or dead or died. You see, when you understand a history of a person, you will not trust them. So the health care, or universal health care, which was proposed decades ago, was stopped simply because there were white supremacists in the government who didn't want black people to have health care, hoping that black people would die off. Y'all get this yet? Now, there are a lot of people out there say, see, you ain't doing but talking about hate. No, I'm talking to history. So if you're telling me that I'm talking hate, then you're saying that America's history is hate. And you know, you would be exactly right. So now they are telling you what they want. This administration, more than ever, is telling you what they want to do. I heard he fired another round of black folks last week. He has a lily white government. I think there are one or two in there. When a man shows you who they are, believe them. Maya Angelou. So I want to talk a little bit about this preacher. You know, you can worship who you want to worship. You can believe what you want to believe. I don't care. I'm basically agnostic. I'm a science mind. I'm an intellectual mind. I think beyond somebody's book that somebody said about doing this or that. But we know now that religion has been one of the main forces in the deprivation, the rape and murder of black people around the world. Africans said when the religious white folks came into Africa, they left them Bibles and the white folks left with all their treasures. We know what religion has done to this world. We know that the Catholic Church waged war on Ethiopia because Haile Selassie said that he was a direct descendant of Jesus Christ. Hello? We know that. We know it was the Catholic Church who did that. Because the Catholic Church wanted to continue the lie about a white Jesus. What you didn't know, that the Catholic Church was collecting black artifacts that proved that if Jesus really existed, he had to be a black man. And the people in the Bible had to be black people. You see, if you would have been taught geography the way you should have been, common sense should have told you that if you're telling me that that the Bible took place in Egypt, you're telling me that, how in the fact that we could have ever gotten a white Jesus out of that? You see, because the slave owners did a great job of lying. Remember the slave Bible, right? Slaves, obey your masters. Whew. I often say that a white Christian is an oxymoron. I'm going to prove it to you here in just a moment. A white Christian is an oxymoron. You know, it's like something that doesn't really make sense. Like jumbo shrimp By nature, shrimp is small. To use the adjective of jumbo, which means huge, that's not really congruent. Okay? So when you say white Christian, what I know about Christianity is it's a religion of love. It is a religion of helping your fellow man. It is a religion of giving your coat off your back to the man that is cold. That's what I was taught growing up in the Christian church. The question is, what were they taught? Because what they're saying and what they've proven over the centuries is nothing but lies and pure evil. And it's all based on racism. So if you didn't know, and I'm going to read this to you. Last week, a Utah minister, far-right minister, calls for biblical-style executions of rebellious young black men. Did you hear what I just said? A far-right minister, and to show you how banal they are, everyone in that church when he made these suggestions should have gotten up and walked out. But I bet you they didn't. Brian Suave, a far-right Christian nationalist pastor in Utah, the fact that you are a Christian nationalist tells me, it proves my point about white Christians being an oxymoron. It proves my point. He's making headlines for saying that young rebellious black men need to be executed. In a recent episode on this podcast, the King's Hall, Suave and Eric Kahn, pun intended, that's his name though, Eric Kahn, another far-right Christian nationalist pastor at Refuge Church in Utah, discussed the killing of Irina Zaratska, a Ukrainian refugee who was murdered earlier this year on a Charlotte metro train by a black man later reported to be, here's the key, mentally ill. The two pastors blamed the crime on black culture and called for the state to execute rebellious young black men, citing the Old Testament. I think it's something like 5% of black males are murderers, Suave said. If you take that and then you took a law like Deuteronomy 21, which is just law that got enacted through Moses, the law was that if you had a rebellious son, you have a child who's coming up into their manhood and they're rebellious. They don't listen. He lists some characteristics. And even though they're disciplined, they will not return, he says. The father is to bring them out into the town square. This is a rebellious son. And then they stone him to death. They kill him. Khan said armed robbers are qualifying for stoning. Oh, absolutely, Suave said. Armed robbers, all the ghetto culture, basically take ghetto culture, it would describe this to a T. If you did that over 3 generations, how much violent crime would you have in the 3rd and 4th generation? Much, much less. Let me stop for a moment. Did y'all know where the word ghetto comes from? There used to be a place called Ghetto, Italy, and that's where they housed the Jews way back then. In other words, the word ghetto came from the Jewish community. I digress. Suave further claimed the problem stemmed from blacks in position of power, singling out the several black women who were involved in releasing DeCarlos Brown, the murderer in the city of Charlotte. In this case, we have the double whammy of black female judges and politicians who have appointed these sorts of people. If you look at who appointed the judge and the judge that released them, it's 2 black women. And what do? They said, oh, it's mental health, it's homelessness, it's this, it's that. It's not a criminal tendency of black males that needs to be cut off through the wielding of the sword by the civil magistrate. Schwab and Cohn, also closely aligned with racist Christian nationalist pastor Joel Webbon, have appeared multiple times at his conferences and on his podcast. Yeah, they want to kill you young black brothers now. Notice they said young black brothers. There's some significance in that. Because it doesn't matter how much power women get, black women get. A male by nature is always going to be able to dominate a female by nature. Okay? So here's the thing. Part of the reason that they emasculated black males and have done so since slavery is if I kill the black male, then you can no longer breed black children. Hello? See, the ignorance of that is that if you breed with a black woman, guess what? You're still going to have black children. Hello? Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because they are telling you what they want to do. Now, if he's so concerned, if this Brian Schwab is so concerned about crime and people committing crime, particularly young people, then certainly, if we're going to do some stoning, shouldn't we start with young white males? Shouldn't we? Let me give you some statistics from the FBI, okay? White people. Because, again, we're speaking facts. We're speaking truth to power. And this argument that white people have been running around for years, decades, and even some black people are mouthing these same lies. It's kind of like when you know, I would talk to black women and they would talk about black fathers and they say, the black men are no good, they don't take care of their children. And then I bring up the Harvard study that was released back in 2016, 17, that says black men take care of their children far more than any race in America. Woo! I remember having an argument with a woman about that. She wouldn't believe it. I even pulled up the study. Black men are more active in their children's lives than white men, Hispanic men, and Asian men. You know who were third on the list? White men. Hello? So the argument that has been placed upon black men for decades that we don't take care of our children has been nothing but a lie. And it has been so pervasive that even our own community, black women will argue you down, saying that's not true because she chose a bad man. Woo! So let me debunk some more lies about black people. Because this is what white people do. They try to change the narrative. According to the FBI, white people commit 69.6% of all crimes. They commit 67.6% of all rapes, 62.8% of all aggravated assaults, 68.4% of burglaries, and 72% of sexual offenses. Most are committed by white men who only make up 30% of the population. Hello? What say you, Reverend Brian Sauve or Suave or whatever you want to call yourself? So here's my point. Since we're going to do some stoning, I think white males should line up first. Because, you know, part of the reason Donald Trump has the attitude that he has today is because he wasn't stoned as you, Reverend Suave, a Suave, a Save, once happening. So I'm all for the stoning. I agree with you. Let's take everybody who commits a crime and let's take them to the center of town and let's stone the hell out of them. I used to have some hell of a rock fights back in the day. I could throw some rocks. So let's do that, Brian. How about that? Wouldn't that make sense? Huh? I'm just asking for a friend. Don't get mad. I'm agreeing with you. Let's have a stoning party. And let's start with the white males who are committing all these crimes. Hello? We'll take a break. I gotta go gather up me some rocks. Gotta get my rock pile ready. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. On JoyNetRadio.com.
For JoyNetRadio.com. I'm inviting all small businesses to contact me at 855-525-5683 and let JoyNet Radio set up an advertising package specifically designed with your business in mind. This is a great opportunity for small businesses to get your products on the air. Do you want to get the word out about a new business? JoyNet Radio is for you. Do you want to advertise your event or social gathering? JoyNet Radio is for you. Do you preach or teach? Do it right here on JoyNetRadio.com. Call me, Dynamic Dave, at 855-525-5683 or go to JoyNetRadio.com and review our great lineup of shows. Let's help each other and let's get your products in the hands of consumers across the country. Call me, Dynamic Dave, at JoyNetRadio.com at 855-525-5683. I'll talk to you soon.
Coleman's Dynamic Products would like to thank you for all the support you've given us over the years. Our growth could not have happened without your purchases and word of mouth to your friends and family. That says you believe and trust us to provide Coleman's Dynamic Products with no fillers and all natural ingredients. We began with our flagship product, Rib Rub, and now it has expanded into snacks, seasonings, salts, rib juice, and pepper juice. We could not have done it without you. I'm David W. Coleman, founder and president, and I want to personally thank you for the encouraging words and support. Coleman's Dynamic Products will continue to be the best dry marinades, seasonings, and sauces you've ever put in your mouth. That's ribrub.com, RIBBRUBB. And you know what we like to say, bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh, yeah.
Pigskin, check. Round ball, check. Hard ball, check. Hockey puck, check. Burning rubber, check. We got it all on the weekly sports page with David Coleman. What else do you need? Did I say food? Can't have sports without food. What kind of show is this again?
A sports show.
Oh, okay. Pass me those rib nuts.
Yeah, we do have it all and a whole lot more with me, Dynamic David Coleman, on the weekly sports magazine.
Welcome back to the show, Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. I had to take a moment. I had to go get me some rocks. I got my rock pile ready, and it's out there. It's just whenever we're ready to stone some of these white criminals, just let me know. I told you racism doesn't make any sense. And when you start applying facts to their racism, those facts make them wither on the vine because they're ignorant. Racism is nothing more than ignorance. It's based on ignorance. You know, at the end of the day, even the color of my skin, there are white people who can benefit from my blood. If I die and my heart is in good condition, there are white people who could benefit from my heart. You see, when it comes to your internal organs, it doesn't matter what color you are. Ask some of these people who are walking around today with major transplants, major organ transplants, and some of those transplants came from little black boys and girls, and the recipient is white. Don't matter. It don't matter. But they will try to push an agenda and a lie. Their entire history is based on a lie. It's instead of saying, hey, look, we messed up. Our ancestors weren't thinking properly. Let's fix this. Let's change this. Let's start today and make sure that when history talks about us centuries ago, it will come to today and say, but those white people changed. They embraced everyone. But instead, history is going to write again how white people decided that they were going to destroy everything that didn't look like them. And they would put into policies that would destroy everything that looks like them. That's why that thing about Medicare and the universal health care kind of boggled my mind when I first read it. That there were chances to do it early on. And many whites opposed it because black people would get free health care. We don't have universal health care because of racism? Well, that just... I'm sorry, I know I talked about that in another segment, but that just boggles my mind. Oh my God, this is just unbelievable. But it really isn't when you begin to understand the history. You know, one of the other lies that they like to tell is about, Antifa. You know what? Have you ever met anybody that was in Antifa? What is Antifa? And these left-wing organizations, they are committing atrocities in America, and this, that, and the other. Left-wing this, left-wing that. But again, all of that stuff falters under true facts. And this is why facts are so important. This is why we must use facts as our weapons. We have to. Did you know that 74% of all murders by domestic terrorists are white supremacists? Let me give you some numbers here. Right-wing extremism. Well, let me do it this way. Left-wing extremism. There are 3 categories in this article. Right-wing extremism, Islamic extremism, because they like to paint Islamic people as terrorists, and left-wing extremism. The funny thing about painting an Islamic person a terrorist, when you go to places like Jordan and Libya and Iran and Iraq and Gaza, it's not them who are bombing children and women and hospitals and schools. It's American-born allies. And in some instances, it's America. So you view them as a terrorist, but you don't view yourself as a terrorist because although you're not doing it in your own country, you're doing it in other countries. But I digress. Let's get back to the right-wing terrorism. Left-wing terrorism, 2%. Islamic terrorism, 24%. Or I should say extremism. Let me take that back. Left-wing extremism, 2%. Islamic extremism, 24%. Right-wing extremism, 74%. 3/4 of all the extremism going on in this country today is committed by right-wing extremists. KKK. The worst domestic terrorism act that ever occurred in America was a white boy. Timothy McVeigh and company. The worst. On domestic soil was committed by Timothy McVeigh. 158 people died, men, women, and children, because he blew up a building. The Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. Let's not forget David Koresh. Let's not forget Jim Jones of Guyana. I could go down the list. Those people who wanted to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, those were white boys. Hello? Don't get mad at me. Get mad at the facts. In fact, look in the mirror and get mad at yourself and say, hell, how the hell did my people get like this, and what am I going to do to change it? That's what you really ought to be doing. But you're not going to do that because you don't care about changing. Do you? No, you don't. Because if you cared about changing, racism wouldn't exist today. Remember I told you that racism was created by white people? Yeah, it was. It was created by white people. You know, it used to be that when you got, people are a lot smarter today in this industry, but when you first started in the computer industry, and even still today, there are people that can write programs that cannot be hacked. Okay? I could write a program that you wouldn't be able to hack. As a matter of fact, you do it every day, most of you at least, when you sign into your phone and you put a password on there that no one can hack. In fact, I got a computer right now that I forgot the password and I can't hack it. Okay? Now, the only person that's going to be able to hack that computer is me, because at some point I'm going to have to remember the password or the coding. I'm going to have to do that. Y'all get this, right? So there are people that do things that you cannot control. So if you created something, why would you expect your group A, you created it, why would you expect group B to be able to understand it and hack it? I'll give you an example. Let's take the pyramids right now. To this day, no one can say how those people built those pyramids. The stone, where did it come from? It wasn't indigenous to the area. How did they stack it? They didn't have machines like we have. Even today, we can't take the modern machines and build the pyramids the way they did. How did those Olmec heads get in Quetzalcoatl, Mexico? One Olmec head weighs 2 tons. How did those Olmec heads get down there? Today we can't figure out, modern science cannot figure out how they got there and how were they carved. And by the way, the rocks in which they were carved from, where did that come from? Because those stones are not native to the area. That's a puzzle. And the only people that could really tell you are the people who did it. So when you create something, a lot of times you are the only one. It's kind of like and I keep giving these examples because I want you to try to understand. It's kind of like when you go to an art museum. Okay? And you look, and there's the artist there, and he's standing beside his painting, and you can ask him, well, what made you use that color on the horizon? What did it stand for? Have you ever had the pleasure of doing that? Only that artist can decipher what is on the canvas. You didn't see it at first, and now because the artist is telling you, this is this, that, this, and that. Now you say, oh yeah, I see that now. Now, I've given you plenty of examples of people creating things that only the creator can decipher. You follow me yet? Because black people did not create racism. Black people did not create segregation. Black people did not create the black codes. Black people did not create lynchings. Black people did not create the Middle Passage. Black people did not create raping little girls and boys and breeding them and selling off their children. White people created that. And all of that was because of racism. I've told you all over and over again is that I'm not marching for none of that crap anymore. Why are they coming to black people? Why have black people spent so much of their time trying to fix racism when we didn't create it? Remember those examples that I just gave you? The Creator has got to tell us how they built the pyramids. The Creator has got to tell us how they carved the Olmec heads. If it wasn't for black people telling us about mathematics, because you know black mathematics was created in Africa, then we wouldn't know algebra. We wouldn't know what a sine and a cosine and a tangent. We wouldn't know what a radius is without those black people. But they left us notes so that we would understand that. So that we could understand calculus and trigonometry. They left us notes. But see, white people created racism, and they have to fix it. I'm not showing up at any more of your, well, I ain't showed up at any of them marches in a long time. I think really the only place I really went, I went to the Martin Luther King parade when I first moved back to Little Rock. That had to be close to 10 years ago. And I was so outdone and disappointed that I vowed I'd never go again, and I didn't as long as I lived there. We have to create ourselves. We have to name ourselves. Okay? We have to do for ourselves. And us spending time trying to get rid of racism is a fool's paradise. One other thing before we go to what we must do. I want to take this moment. I want to take this moment and talk about Black Republicans. This is a sorry lot of people. I wonder how when you're in the room and they are espousing these lies about white supremacists and black on black crime, what do you say? Do you object? Do you say, well, you know, white people commit more crime than black people, right? It's kind of like they talk about black people being on welfare, but you know, when you break down the numbers, there are more white people. In fact, there's quadruple more white people on welfare than there are black people. Hello? Yeah, you can use that percentage. What was it, that number I said? 38.9% of whites were on welfare. And then it was 38.7% of black people on welfare. Well, you might look at that and say, whoa, well, look at that. How is it there's just about the same of black folks on welfare as white folks? How's that? But when you really look into the numbers, you begin to realize that because there are more white people in America, when you look in the actual numbers, it's quadruple that of black people. I'm not saying I'm not going to fight racism. I fight racism every time I do this show. I fight racism with facts. So I fight every day. What I'm not going to do is get out there and fight with white folks. What I do is empower people. I give them knowledge of self. I try to make sure that they are understanding is you are the way you are because of the history of racism in this country. And what you can do as a black person is be the best you can be and not allow them to pit you against other black people. One of the reasons I didn't like rap music is because they pitted black folks on the East Coast against the West Coast, and they were killing each other. That never made any sense to me. Even gangs, the Crips, the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, or whatever you call yourselves, you killing black folk. You're doing exactly what their racism wants you to do. Remember, they didn't want you to have health care. That's what this whole fight is about. And it goes back to the early 1900s. They were hoping you would die off. Hello? Not understanding genetics at the time, that the black gene is the most powerful gene. And if you killed every black man in the world, all he needed to do was impregnate one black woman, or one white woman, or one Asian woman, and he could replenish the earth with black people. That's genetics that they don't want you to know. But those people like Byron Donalds, Tim Scott, Clarence Thomas, Mark Burns, Daryl Scott, all of those, and there are many more that I didn't name. I'd like to say I feel sorry for you, but I don't. We know that many of you all are doing it because of money. White people are pouring money into your coffers. Where is the morality? We don't, it used to be back in the day. And I'm going to end on this and we'll come back with what we must do. It used to be back in the day that there were morals. There were drunks who even had morals. Let me tell you a little story. When I got up and started smelling myself, about 16, I got a little hair on my face. People were saying that I looked older than what I really was. I won't tell you that part. I'll just say that I walked in some older circles. Well, let me just be honest with you. There was an older woman who sexually abused me. At the time, I didn't think it was sexual abuse. I thought I was a man. She was sexually abusing a 16-year-old kid. That was me. Okay? But I remember going to the liquor store with my crew. I won't tell you, but it was about 6 of us who hung together. They said, Dave, you go in and buy. And we went and bought a bottle of Mogan David 2020. In other words, Mad Dog 2020. You look the oldest because you've got hair on your face. And I walked first. The first time we tried it, we tried to get a drunk to buy the liquor. And the drunk man cussed us out. He said, where is your mama? I'm going to tell your mama, what the hell y'all doing down here trying to buy liquor and let alone Mad Dog 2020? Get the hell. And he cussed us out. We all ran away. We didn't get liquor that day. You know what? That drunk man had morals. He was a drunk. He was smelly. He was dirty. He had a scraggly beard. But he had morals. Okay? He had morals. We don't have morals today. And when you look at the history of white people, they've never had morals. That's something. So we enter the segment of what we must do. And this whole show today surrounded this theme of defeat the narrative. I just mentioned the fact about rappers killing each other because they bought into the narrative. We as black men and women, some of our children are out on the streets right now killing each other because they've bought into the narrative. We don't vote because we've bought into the narrative. Until we understand that the narrative is what controls us, the media is what controls us, we are going to continue to suffer what we are suffering. That's why black media is so important. You have to have someone who's going to speak truth to power. Look, Fox News is a classic example of what I'm telling you. Is that they, the creators of Fox News, didn't like the narrative. Although the narrative was relatively correct, Fox News decided that we're going to create our own narrative. And they use black people to do it. Think about it. I told you the story. Fox used to have all the great black shows. One of my favorite all-time shows is In Living Color. A groundbreaking show that featured a black family and black comedians. I know Jim Carrey was on there, but he was black too, you know. It was on Fox News. There were all kinds of shows that featured black people on Fox News because they were using black people in order to gain their listenership or their viewership. They wanted to control the narrative.
Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. Dynamic Dave for JoinedRadio.com. I'm inviting all small businesses to contact me at 855-525-5683 and let Joined Radio set up an advertising package specifically designed with your business in mind. This is a great opportunity for small businesses to get your products on the air. Do you want to get the word out about a new business? Joined Radio is for you. Do you want to advertise your event or social gathering? Joined Radio is for you. Do you preach or teach? Do it right here on joinedradio.com. Call me, Dynamic Dave, at 855-525-5683 or go to joinedradio.com and review our great lineup of shows. Let's help each other and let's get your products in the hands of consumers across the country. Call me, Dynamic Dave, at joinedradio.com at 855-525-5683. I'll talk to you soon. Coleman's Dynamic Products would like to thank you for all the support you've given us over the years. Our growth could not have happened without your purchases and word of mouth to your friends and family. That says you believe and trust us to provide Coleman's Dynamic Products with no fillers and all natural ingredients. We began with our flagship product, Rib Rub, and now it has expanded into snacks, seasonings, salts, rib juice, and pepper juice. We could not have done it without you. I'm David W. Coleman, founder and president, and I want to personally thank you for the encouraging words and support. Coleman's Dynamic Products will continue to be the best dry marinades, seasonings, and sauces you've ever put in your mouth. That's ribrub.com, RIBBRUBB, and you know what we like to say, bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh, yeah.
Pigskin, check. Round ball, check. Hard ball, check. Hockey puck, check. Burning rubber, check. We got it all on the weekly sports page with David Coleman. What else do you need? Did I say food? Can't have sports without food. What kind of show is this again?
A sports show.
Oh, okay. Pass me those rib nuts.
Yeah, we do have it all and a whole lot more with me, Dynamic David Coleman, on the weekly sports magazine. Hi, I'm David W. Coleman, host of Black Focus Radio and the weekly sports magazine. We here at joinetradio.com would like to thank you for all the love and support you've given us. Our goal is to keep you inspired and informed daily with quality programming from gospel music, news, talk, and sports. Log on to joinetradio.com for the program lineup, and while there, be sure to make a donation. Then download our app and carry us anywhere in the world. Please continue to spread the word about joinetradio.com. And if you are an entrepreneur or have an upcoming event or you'd like to start a show, let the professional writers and producers here at joinetradio.com help you get the word out. Call me at 615-554-0568 for more details. In the meantime, stay informed and inspired daily right here on joinetradio.com.
The media has always controlled the narrative. It was, if you go back and read some of the accounts of the massacres during the Red Summer, the news media was all for it. They weren't doing any investigative journalism to find out exactly why this massacre took place. Last week I talked about Elaine and told you how the news media, including the Arkansas Gazette, they were in favor of what went on. It's about the narrative. And we have the power now more so than ever to control that narrative through black media, through the social media, through black news outlets. Although they are few, but many of them are still out there fighting. You see, if they tell you enough that you're going to be a criminal, you grow up and say, well, they've always said I'm going to be a criminal. I might as well be one. It's kind of like the argument about the N-word. They've called me the N-word all my life. I guess I am one. So I'll refer to myself as one, and I'll refer to my friends as one, the N-word. Yep. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. So it's about the narrative. You got to support black businesses. You got to speak truth to power. You got to use positive reinforcement, even in your own personal life. Look, if you've ever done anything successful, you've said to yourself at some point, I can do this. Whether it's athletics, whether it's academia, whether it's simply changing your oil, whatever it is that you thought you couldn't do and you do it, how do you feel? Something as simple as, I knew women who needed their yards cut and couldn't find anyone to cut their yards, start cutting their yards, and there you go. Wasn't that hard, was it? It's about controlling the narrative. It's about believing in yourself. That's what it's really all about. And we've allowed them to tell us that you don't matter. We've allowed them to impart words upon us that is negative, and we've embraced those words. We've allowed them to tell us that black businesses can't be successful. We've allowed them to say that black banks are not successful. So you take your money to Bank of America, who made money off of your ancestors. Yeah, that Bank of America. It's about the narrative, folks. It's about what you believe. It's about doing your research. There is no reason on God's green earth today why black people should not, when someone says something stupid, you go out and do the research. You can go to, it's to the point now, you don't even need ChatGPT. All of the browsers now have an AI component. All you got to do is click on it. You know, I was looking at my phone the other day and this icon popped up. It just popped up. And I hit it. And guess what? It's an AI app that was downloaded to my phone by the phone company. So now if I want some specifics, I just hit the app. My point being is there is no longer any reason why you should allow them to write your narrative. That's why I'm talking about Colfax, Elaine, Tulsa, and all these other places that were, all these other black people that were massacred. Because these people are trying to control the narrative. They're trying to rewrite history. And we can't let them do that. It is imperative that we as black people stand up, because if they control the narrative, they've lied for 400 years. They've told you you're nothing. They told you that your people didn't create anything. And now, because we have evidence, and thank God we have the internet, and as I told people years ago, it used to be that you had to go to the library. The books that I display to you sometimes on this show, I had to buy them out of my pocket. I would buy a book and I would buy an album. You don't even have to do that anymore. You can just go out on the internet. That's how you control the narrative. And not only that, you got to speak truth to power, and you have to teach your children. You cannot allow these schools to just teach you, because guess what? The schools are ran by white supremacists. They're not going to teach you black history. You can't sit around and wait till February and say, oh, it's Black History Month. Black history is a 365-day, 24/7 account. You live it every day. You wear it on your sleeve. You wear it as a badge of honor. Every time you walk out with your black skin, that's your history. And you teach it. And you don't be afraid to show other people your history. Your history is not robbing banks. Your history is not gang banging. Your history is not gangster rap. Your history is excellence. Your history are the pyramids. Your history is the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Your history are 400 years of forced bondage to simply overcome and be where you are today. That's your history. You see, your history is not slavery. Your history is, in part, how you overcame slavery. You see, that's the narrative. That's the narrative. And that's what they fear, is that so many of us now are beginning to become aware. BlackNet is aware, and it's growing stronger every day. And that's why they're trying to cut off the signal. And on that note, girls and boys, we've got to get out of here. That's what we must do. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody else to join Black Focus Radio as we drop more and more knowledge of self and the power of our people. Remember, brilliant minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. Which do you possess? Have a great day.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on joynetradio.com.